Well, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages out there, because that's what Doctor Who show was actually meant for, was families and children of all ages out there. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you can normally tell something and how it's going to turn out by the way they market things, right? If you have creatives and actors and actresses involved in a situation where they come out and they talk about how great the story is, how compelling all the stories are, how much great interaction they're having with their co-stars on set, and how much chemistry there was, and like how it's going to take the story into completely and totally new heights. It's going to see really awesome things. You're going to see new evolutions of the characters. You're going to see new monsters introduced. You're going to see new villains introduced. You see all these wonderful things happen and move on with the story, right? That's what you want to hear about a new show. That's what you want to hear about it. What you don't want to hear about, and generally what is a very bad sign of any kind of marketing whatsoever, is if all they talk about is the identity politics of the people involved with a show. And ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already seen that from Doctor Who at its 60th anniversary special, well, here's more stuff from not only the current showrunner and writer, Russell T Davies, but also the current star of the show, Ncuti Gatwa, who is currently playing the Doctor. I almost hate to even say that, playing the Doctor in Neo Who, which is exactly what all of this is. New Who was when we had Eccleston and Tennant, and going forward with this. This stuff now, since Chibnall and everybody else has taken over, is Neo Who. And Neo Who has been absolute garbage. The stories have been very lackluster. They've been boring. They've been sad. They've been pathetic. And obviously the viewership has shown that, because it's drastically declined ever since Chris Chibnall took over, and now has continued to decline now that Russell T Davies is back and Ncuti Gatwa is now the new Doctor. Things have continued to go down and decline and over again. And I think this kind of marketing is a prime example of exactly why that kind of things happen and why so many people are checking out. Because when you talk about nothing but identity politics, everybody knows that's exactly what your show is going to be out. And every time we have seen this happen in the past with things like this, it almost equals out to an absolute miserable failure time and time again, whether it be the box office of Lightyear, whether it be the fact that a movie that turned out to not actually be anywhere near as much about identity politics as what the marketing tried to claim. The Dungeons and Dragons movie that came out last year, that one I've heard from a lot of people was actually good and had none of the identity politics stuff that they were talking about in the media the entire time with that show. Well, guess what? With Doctor Who, it is exactly what you get right here. Because Ncuti Gatwa out here decides to go out there and completely and totally diss the fans instead of talking about how good things are going to be and how many more fans they are looking to bring in. No. He comes out here and says Ncuti Gatwa was the first openly queer black actor to take on the role of the core Doctor, because yes, that matters so much. It has nothing to do with the fact that he's got these great acting talents and the fact that he's done a lot of these incredible roles. It just made him perfect to play the Doctor and play all the quirky and zaniness that comes with the Doctor. No. It's not about that. The headline opens right here. The first openly queer black actor. Because that's all that's important to them. That's all important to these identity politics, box checking weirdos out there. Because that's really all that matters to them. Because they don't know anything. They have no talent. They have no creative talent left. Russell T Davies used to have creative talent. Apparently he's just been completely and totally possessed by the spirit of the age and completely become an acolyte for the cult, because clearly that's not something happening. We got one halfway decent episode out of the 60th anniversary special. And even then, there was a lot of nonsense that annoyed people, and there was plenty of plot holes that didn't make sense as well. Russell T Davies is not the man he once was. He is not the creator he once was, and he sure as hell is not the showrunner he once was. Whether you want to tout that up to the Disney influence or whether you want to tout that to Russell T Davies just been trapped inside of this acolyte of the cult, brainwashing nonsense of a bubble for all of this time, and he actually thinks that this is acceptable in the world, that this is acceptable to the fans, and that everybody's just going to love up and line up for this kind of stuff. Well, clearly the viewership doesn't prove that. It shows that that's not true in any way, shape, or form. And now Ncuti Gatwa, the new Doctor, is coming out there and saying that if you have a problem with me being queer and black and cast in this role, well, you're the problem, and you've never really been a fan of Doctor Who. Well, guess what, buddy? Let's get into your comments down here, and let's get into the exact size of what you said here, because Russell T Davies has a lovely little follow-up to this right there, showing you exactly what the show is going to be all about going forward. And ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to actually enjoy good Who with us, join us at 6 p.m. every Sunday over on the Rumble channel exclusively, where we review good new Who. We started at Eccleston, we're working way out through Tennant. Don't miss it. You're going to love it. Remember when Who was good, and don't let these monsters that are trying to destroy your franchise, take away your good memories. It's always a good time. So come check us out on Rumble at The Common Nerd. So now with Davies back at the helm, Gatwa's making history as the first openly queer black actor to take on the role of the core Doctor. Oh, yay! What an accomplishment. Yay! Do you know what? It makes perfect sense to me. Gatwa, who was born in Rwanda and raised in Scotland. Well, oh, so he's an immigrant too. Well, there's another box checked. Says of his casting, I feel like anyone who has a problem with someone who's not a straight white man playing this character, you're not really truly a fan of the show. See, and there's the problem right there. not understanding in any way, shape, or form what the issue is with the fan bases. Okay? Were there some people out there that were upset that Jodie Whittaker was cast as the Doctor, that they were transforming into a female? Yes. Had some of us seen the writing on the wall with Missy and the Master beforehand? Yes. Okay? Did all of us completely and totally reject it from the beginning? No. No, I gave it a shot. I watched that first season. It was boring, it was dry, and it was dull. And then the abomination that Chris Chibnall did with the Timeless Child was literally the final nail in the coffin. And Chris Chibnall even came out and flat out said later on that it was his intention from the very beginning to devastate and destroy Doctor Who canon. And he did it. And they let him get away with it. And guess what? Russell T Davies isn't going to retcon any of that. So until that is retconned, Doctor Who is dead. And all we've got is classic and new Who, which is all still good, is all still enjoyable. Is it all 100%? No. But it's way better than anything we will ever get from them. And we have years of backstories and back episodes to go through. So join us on Sundays. Because this guy clearly doesn't understand the fans in any way, shape, or form. It's not that we have a problem with him being black or queer. We don't care. But when that's all your identity is about, that's all these articles talk about in the marketing, that's an issue, because that means it's not going to be about good Doctor Who stories. It's not going to be about sci-fi and time travel and monsters and saving the Earth. No, it's going to be all about his identity, because that's all they have to push anymore. They've lost all their creative talent. They can't tell good stories anymore. That's been proven by Hollywood and everybody else involved in television the last few years, time and time again. Yes, we've had a few good things out there, but the majority of it has been crap. And we know why. It's because of agenda and identity politics. And that's exactly what this is. This was nothing more than a diversity hire. What outside of a couple of television shows did Ncuti Gatwa have before this that he was qualified for this role? Tell me, besides his skin color and his sexuality, what qualified him for this role? Anybody? Anybody? Please let me know. Please let me know. You've not been, so he says right here, I feel like anyone that has a problem with someone who's not straight white man playing this character, you're not really truly a fan of the show. You've not been watching because the show is about regeneration and the Doctor is an alien. Why would they only choose to be this sort of person? Well, why would, unless we've, and obviously this was involved with a lot of English actors back in the day, but I doubt we didn't see a black Time Lord until very recently. And that was during the Peter Capaldi run. But other than that, I mean, I guess that doesn't really matter. It's a giant planet. Everybody should be diverse either way. That doesn't really matter all that much. But at the end of the day, that's not the problem. The problem isn't the fact that he's a gay black man in his own personal life. The problem is, right, what Davies says right here afterwards. Davies echoes that logic. They weren't exactly the straightest men in the past. Tell that to Rose. Tell that to Martha. Tell that to any of the doctors coming before. Tell that to the very first Doctor. Tell that to Matt Smith. Tell that to all of those kind of people out there. So what? Just because you're a little flamboyant, just because you're willing to be outrageous and over the top, means you're automatically gay? That's kind of presumptuous of you there, Russell T Davies. That's pretty presumptuous of you. Or he's basically saying that he was always trying to make the Doctor gay. One of the two. Fortunately enough, he failed miserably. A trailblazer of LGBTQ television. Oh, yes, because that's what it's all about. Davies created the original Queer as Folk in 1999 and 2021's It's a Sin. So he's got two things that make him a trailblazer, one from 99 and the other one not until 2021, which is just a couple of years ago. Okay, sure, whatever. And about how Gatwa's Doctor is different, he says. You're talking about someone who does have a lightness and a joy about him. That, to me, chimes with queer energy. Yes, the Doctor's always been gay. Didn't you know? The Doctor's always been gay. It's very rarely driving the story vehemently, but you will see moments exploring it. We're not delivering a neuter Doctor. Oh, yes. So just like we saw David Tennant's Doctor get absolutely bastardized and turned into someone who was finding a male attractive already and saying that he was hot, well, I'm sure you're not just going to lean right into that now that your new Doctor is a full-blown homosexual and you're totally going to lean into all of that. I'm sure the Doctor's not going to have a boyfriend at any time. I'm sure that's never going to happen. I'm sure we're never going to see him kiss a dude on screen or anything like that. I'm sure you would never leave into any of that, would you, Russell T Davies? No, of course not. Oh, wait. While the Doctor's sexuality has never been labeled, wife, kids, Rose, Martha, second wife, other companions that he's clearly been attracted to, even one-off ones like on Voyage of the Damned. I mean, we could keep going. I mean, seriously? Like, I mean, we got stuff like this all day. Yeah, so he never came out and said he was straight because it was pretty obvious. Hate to tell you, but no matter what kind of crazy math you do, two dudes having relations don't equal a baby. Just not how that works. And guess what? We met the doctor's daughter in the very first episode of Doctor Who. So, yeah. But like I said, it's going to be very much involved in this series. And Gatwa's first episode is The Lead, The Church on Ruby Road, which premiered as the traditional Doctor Who Christmas special. Remember when we thought that gave us hope? Viewers see him dancing in a kilt and referencing his long, hot summer with Harry Houdini. Yeah. Now we've had the Doctor refer to past trips with women in the past. But yeah, I'd say this is a retcon. I'd say this is a change. And though Davies insists he didn't set out to be revolutionary in casting the next Doctor, we auditioned men, women, black, white, non-binary actors, and actors whose sexuality was their own private matter. He says, these are exactly the type of barriers I like to break. Oh, so he says it wasn't intentional, but it's also the kind of barrier he likes to break. So essentially, Russell T Davies is going to turn Doctor Who into Queer as Folk, and all it's going to be about is all of the relationships and past trysts that the Doctor has had with men. Color me shocked. And of course, Russell T Davies flat out admits that he's not going to stop. It's very hard for anyone to stop me doing these things. You'd have to be pretty brave executive to say, don't go there to me. I'm sure there are people thinking that, but I wouldn't work with them, would I? Well, that certainly explains why Disney is such a perfect fit for you, because you know they are certainly not going to tell you no, except for the fact that when eventually the money comes to fruition and eventually all of the bills come due, because that's kind of what happens with Marvel. That's kind of what's happened with Kevin Feige and Bob Iger, because guess what? They're all flat broke. So the hundreds of millions of dollars they're going to continue to spend on this show, because it is a sci-fi show with lots of special effects, and that's the kind of money you have to spend on things like that. Eventually that bill is going to come due. So either your show is going to get canceled and be failed and miserably and get shopped around to someone else, or someone inside of that company or someone inside of the investment world out there is actually going to have enough sense to come in there and tell you to stop. Next year, if rumor be truth be told, Bob Iger's got a year to turn Disney around. And if he doesn't, Wall Street's no longer backing him next year. And I'm going to be really curious to see what happens, because I guess what, Russell T Davies, if that change does happen, someone is going to come in and tell you to knock this off. I guarantee it. And you can huff and puff and you can threaten to leave all you want, but have at it, buddy, because you've done nothing. If Chris Chibnall buried and killed Doctor Who, well, guess what, Russell T Davies? You're writing the eulogy, because it's over. And you have helped cement that entirely by making Doctor Who nothing more than about your own identity politics, about your own queerness, and not about adventures in space and time, which is all real Whovians actually want.